Hello everyone and welcome to the EPA WaterSense Program's webinar, A for Assess, Setting Goals and Developing a Water Management Plan. This webinar is the second training session of WaterSense's 2015 webinar series to help hotels and other commercial and institutional facilities assess, change, and track their water use. I'm Christine Cho, a supporting contractor to EPA's WaterSense program, and I will be moderating this presentation. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce the presenters you'll be hearing from today. Hosting this webinar is Tara O'Hare with the WaterSense program. Tara currently serves as the Implementation and Commercial Outreach Lead for WaterSense. She is responsible for program operations, partner support, and outreach to commercial and institutional facilities. Tara was responsible for the release of WaterSense at Work, Best Management Practices for Commercial and Institutional Facilities, and is currently managing the Hotel Challenge. Our second speaker will be Robbie Pickering with ERG. Robbie is an environmental engineer who focuses on water conservation and sustainable facility management. For WaterSense, he supports the product specification development process and has helped develop technical materials to assist the commercial and institutional sector in implementing water-saving best management practices. Finally, today's case study will be presented by Kara Foe, who is a program manager with the New York City Department of Environmental Protection. Kara will discuss her experience working with hotels and restaurants to develop water management plans and start saving water. Let's review a few housekeeping items before we begin. All attendees have been muted to minimize background noise. If you have a question during the presentation, please type it into the chat box on the upper right-hand side of your screen. We will have a dedicated time for questions at appropriate breaks throughout the presentation. Now, I'd like to turn it over to our first speaker today, Tara O'Hare. Welcome, Tara.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you all for joining us today for the second webinar of our 2015 technical training series. First up on the agenda, I'll provide some context for why it is so important for facilities to save water and energy. Then I will give a general profile of water use in commercial and institutional buildings and some details about water use in hotels specifically. Then I'll provide a brief overview of the WaterSense program and the WaterSense Hotel Challenge. This will include what tools and resources the WaterSense program and this Hotel Challenge in particular can provide to help you manage and reduce your facility's water use. As we move into the technical portion of the presentation, we'll first provide with a quick recap of the first few steps of water management planning, which we covered in our first A for Assess webinar in June. These steps will include making a commitment to water efficiency, conducting a facility water assessment, and establishing a facility water balance. Water management planning is a critical aspect for understanding and managing facility water use, and that will not only lead to resource and cost savings, but to greater adaptability. Then we'll take a deeper dive into the next steps of water management planning, which is the focus of this training. These steps will include setting goals and developing a water management plan. You'll learn why these steps are so important and how you can easily get started. Then we'll hand it over to Kara Foe to present a case study on her experience with water management planning with the New York City Mayor's Water Challenge program at the New York City Department of Environmental Protection. We'll break at appropriate points throughout the presentation to take questions. Before we get started, we want to take a couple of quick polls to try and understand who's attending the training today and what the various interests in water efficiency might be, and some of the background that you might already have about the WaterSense or commercial and institutional water efficiency. So if you could just take a quick second to answer some of the polls, that would help us a lot. You can just do that on your screen. Okay, excellent. And the second question we just had was just to get a sense of how familiar you are with WaterSense's commercial and institutional materials. Some of you may be participating in the Hotel Challenge, and some of you may be just looking at some of the other materials that we have. All right, thank you guys very much. Looks like we have some people that have reviewed the materials and others that may not have heard much about it. So we'll get a good overview for some of you who may not have seen it before, and then we'll get into some more of the details that can help you. So I always like to start off by drawing your attention to the ongoing drought that's occurring throughout the United States. Many of you have probably heard in the news that water scarcity and drought are happening in various places during the year at any given time. These maps were taken from the drought.gov website, which is maintained by the National Drought Mitigation Center, and all are updated every week. As you can see from these maps, the darker colors indicate an area where there is a stronger or more dire drought conditions. Right now, there's a historic drought occurring in California and elsewhere on the West Coast that has been all over the news. But the earlier maps show that drought has hit several areas of the U.S. in years past. Puerto Rico, which is shown in the right in the top box, is also experiencing historic droughts, so much so that they've been required to start water rationing. You can imagine how that might impact your commercial and institutional facility if you're not even able to access potable water for a certain amount of time. These droughts and water shortages are now a reality rather than the exception, especially as climate change increases the uncertainty of weather events and the risks of water shortages. In fact, according to a Government Accountability Office report published in May of 2014 on freshwater availability, 40 states expect to see water shortages in the next 10 years. So now that we've given you an overview of the severe drought conditions happening at the regional level, let's talk about why you might want to reduce your facility's water and energy use. In general, as most of us know, reducing water and energy reduces operating costs just by lowering utility costs. Many hotels and other commercial and institutional facilities are also reducing utility use to be proactive in the face of this increasing uncertainty. Many hotels and other businesses use projected costs to evaluate and plan potential projects in the future, like building renovations and other improvements. Nationally, water rates and sewer rates have been rising at a much faster rate than inflation and can vary very widely depending on local conditions. This is continuing to be a trend across the country, and it makes it very difficult for facilities to plan for their future because they can't project their future costs if their utility rates can vary so widely. Saving water can also save the energy that's used to heat, pump, and treat water. Proactively managing fixtures and systems can improve the equipment efficiency, which really reduces maintenance costs and man-hours required for repairs as well. While reducing your bottom line, saving water and energy may also increase your competitive advantage. Demonstrating leadership in the green marketplace and implementing sustainability initiatives can be very important to consumers and stakeholders who have increasing expectations for corporate, social, and environmental responsibility. Using water as efficiently as possible will help facilities better control their utility costs and mitigate the risk of higher water bills down the road. Becoming more water and energy efficient also shows facilities that can be proactive and ready to act when water shortages trigger restrictions on water use, such as outdoor watering restrictions. Finally, you can also demonstrate leadership in your community and willingness to contribute to conservation efforts by participating in programs such as the Energy Star National Building Competition, LEED, TripAdvisor's Green Leader Program, and the WaterSense Hotel Challenge. So this next slide shows a typical breakdown of water use at a few different commercial and institutional facility types. As you can see, water is used differently depending on the type of facility and its operations. In general, sanitary use in restrooms is a significant use of water no matter what type of the facility, and can account for approximately 30 to 45% of total water use. But there are other certain water uses that are applicable only to certain facilities. For example, a restaurant uses a lot of water for dishwashing and food preparation, whereas a hospital uses a lot of water to operate medical and laboratory equipment. At our June webinar, we reviewed how to conduct a water assessment. We will briefly recap that information later in this presentation, but essentially a water assessment can help facilities understand the areas where water is used and provide an idea of how the facility is using water, and provide an idea of the relative consumption, such as those shown above. This information enables facilities to target high water use areas and identify specific cost-effective potential savings opportunities. As we'll discuss today, this water use breakdown should be included in an effective water management plan and can be very informative for setting water reduction goals. For our hotel participants, here's a more detailed breakdown of water use in the average hotel. There are a number of places you may be using and potentially wasting water. Guest bathrooms, of course, are a great place to start. because they account for approximately 30% of the average hotel's water use. This, of course, varies depending on occupancy rates, but it is generally one of the highest uses of water. Water use in guest rooms is largely impacted by plumbing fixture use, so this is a great area to target if you're considering replacing existing fixtures. WaterSense labeled toilets, faucets, and shower heads can offer an effective and high-performing option to help reduce your overall water use in guest rooms. There is a number of other opportunities for water savings depending on the hotel's amenities. Linen laundry, landscaping, commercial kitchens, and heating and cooling all account for significant water use within hotels. Significant savings can be found in all of these areas through changes to standard operating procedures or through fixture and system retrofits or replacements. For those of you who may not be familiar with WaterSense, let me just give you a brief summary before we dive into water management planning. WaterSense is a voluntary program EPA launched in 2006. We work with a variety of partners to promote water efficiency and encourage innovation in manufacturing. Our end goal is to help organizations and consumers save water for future generations. The WaterSense label, which is displayed here on the right side of the slide, provides a simple way for consumers and businesses to identify water-saving products, homes, and programs. More than 15,000 different labeled models of plumbing fixtures and irrigation products have earned the WaterSense label to date. All products receiving this label have been independently certified for water efficiency and performance to ensure that they perform just as well or better than their conventional counterparts. WaterSense approaches water efficiency from many angles to get information out as widely as possible. We assess and develop technical specifications to label fixtures and technologies to help consumers and businesses find that simple way to find water-efficient products. We develop best management practices to help professionals design, operate, and maintain commercial and institutional facilities and residential landscapes as efficiently as possible. We also work with our partners and stakeholders to educate users and change behaviors to save water and other aspects of daily water use. And finally, we organize outreach and marketing campaigns such as the Hotel Challenge to try to get the word out to different stakeholders about our products, practices, and partners that can be used to help reduce overall water use. As many of you probably are aware, the Hotel Challenge was started to promote and encourage best practices to reduce hotel water use. There are a variety of residential and commercial products eligible for the WaterSense label that can be used in hotels and other commercial facilities. The label is generally reserved for products that use at least 20% less water and perform as well or better than their less efficient counterparts. Through 2014, WaterSense has helped consumers save over 1 trillion gallons of water and over $21.7 billion in water and energy costs. We're happy to announce that our next commercial product spec will be covering the flushometer valve toilets and will help us save even more water nationwide. While the WaterSense program focuses on developing specifications for water-using products, we also work in conjunction with EPA's highly successful Energy Star program on products that use hot water and therefore energy. For example, WaterSense and Energy Star work together to develop the WaterSense specification for commercial pre-rinse spray valves. And Energy Star is now promoting these WaterSense labeled products as part of their commercial kitchens program. In addition, water factors are included for Energy Star qualified products that use water, like clothes washers, ice machines, steam cookers, and dishwashers. Overall, consumers and businesses can be confident that WaterSense and Energy Star labeled products are more efficient than their standard counterparts. WaterSense released a commercial and institutional best management practice guidebook called WaterSense at Work in October of 2012 to help commercial and institutional facilities understand, manage, and reduce water use. This guidebook includes best management practices on water management planning, water use monitoring and education, sanitary fixtures and equipment, commercial kitchen equipment, outdoor water use, mechanical systems, laboratory and medical equipment, and on-site alternative sources of water. Product and equipment specific chapters in each of these main water use areas cover water efficient operation and maintenance, retrofit, and replacement recommendations. WaterSense at Work also includes ideas for enhancing education and outreach in these commercial and institutional facilities to promote water savings. We decided the most effective way to promote these best practices would be to focus our efforts on one specific commercial sector. So in 2014, in February, we launched the Hotel Challenge. The challenge encourages hotels to assess, change, and track their water use, or ACT. While the challenge is focused on hotels, any commercial and institutional facility can use the information. The first step is to conduct a water assessment of the facility to evaluate and identify opportunities to reduce buildings' water use. This step will be covered in today's webinar. The challenge portion involves implementing best management practices to improve products, processes, and practices within your facility to reduce water use. And finally, we encourage you to track your water use before and after making changes so you can measure your progress. You can find all of this information and sign up for the challenge on the WaterSense website if you haven't already. So now we're going to stop and ask for any questions before we get into some of the other aspects.
So we had a question come in. When do we expect the WaterSense specification for flushometers and commercial toilet bowls?
We're currently finalizing some of the final portions of the specification, and we expect to hopefully release it sometime in the late fall, early winter, if that's a time frame. I would say probably sometime near November. So everybody that is interested can just, if you're not already getting our email updates, you can send an email to the helpline and we'll get you on the list to make sure you get the most recent updates.
Can you define a flushometer?
Yeah, a flush shower valve toilet is typically a toilet that you find in a commercial restroom. So it sort of looks like a metal pipe that comes up from just the water closet fixture. So usually you don't find them in homes. They're mainly in commercial settings like airports and malls and office buildings.
Excellent. So we just got a reminder that the flushometer spec, valve toilet spec may be coming in early 16 as well. So it's still a little bit fluid since we're still working through some of the nuts and bolts and details, but it will be pretty soon.
All right, thank you for your questions. Now I'd like to invite my colleague Robbie Pickering to discuss water management planning.
Thanks, guys. As many of you are aware, water and energy use is connected. Energy Star and WaterSense have created guidelines to help facilities manage energy and water use to become more water efficient and energy efficient. The diagram on this slide provides you a visual representation of the management and planning process, which is further described within the water management planning section of WaterSense at Work. The steps for managing water and energy listed on this slide will guide a facility through the process of assessing, changing, and tracking water use. We covered steps 1 and 2 of this process during the last webinar we held in June, and we'll do a quick recap of that today. We'll then dive into some of the details of steps 3 and 4, which are setting goals and creating a facility water management plan, which is the focus of today's webinar. Our next 2 webinars scheduled for October and December will address steps 5 through 7. We will focus on water management and efficiency during this webinar, but you can get more information about energy management on Energy Star's webpage. So to do a quick recap of the first technical webinar, the first step to water management planning is to make a commitment. This may seem obvious, but it's obviously not a step that we want to gloss over. Your facility needs to make a commitment to water efficiency. If you operate a hotel, taking the WaterSense Hotel Challenge may represent that commitment. If you operate another type of facility, consider entering an EPA's national building competition hosted by Energy Star, or possibly a local or regional competition that's managed by a local environmental agency or local utility. Once you've made your commitment, ensure that all organizational levels within your facility or business, from the CEO to the facility manager and down to the operational staff and employees, are involved and can participate in this effort. Many insights come from people in different positions, so it can be helpful to involve all types of employees in this process. The graphic on the slide represents some examples of where various people throughout your organization can be involved regarding water management. Employees at each level have buy-in and can help set goals, conduct an assessment, identify water-saving projects, and incorporate their own water-saving habits and techniques at day-to-day working schedule. Making sure staff are aware and bought into facility water management goals can ensure that they are promoting your business sustainability effort to guests and clientele. Pulling from all these organizational levels, you should form a dedicated water management team. The team should include employees such as building managers, shift managers, corporate environmental personnel, and maintenance staff. From within this team, identify a team leader who will take control of water management and water efficiency projects. The next step I want to recap, and this is probably the most involved and important step in the water management planning process, is to assess your facility's water use by conducting a facility water assessment or walkthrough. Before you begin to make your facility more efficient, you really need to get a good understanding of where water is being used and how. To properly assess your facility, you'll first need to gather readily available information on sources of water, review recent water bills, and establish a water use baseline. Review your water bills and identify facility water meters to help understand what sources of water at your facility. A lot of times this might be only municipally supplied potable water, but in other cases you might have non-potable sources such as an on-site well, recovered rainwater, or captured air handler condensate. Regardless of the source, metering is a great way to understand and track ongoing water use. So during the review, identify where submeters may be beneficial to help assess the water use of particular systems that might use a large amount of water, such as cooling towers or irrigation systems. You can also install temporary flow meters for certain pieces of equipment that operate on a standard schedule to get a picture of how water is used there. This could be a cheaper option than pursuing a permanent submeter. Next, you'll want to gather and review water bills from the past couple of years to understand use patterns and the cost of water and wastewater at your facility. At a minimum, you'll want to collect a year's worth of utility bills to help you establish a baseline, but ideally you'll have a couple of years so that you can sort of understand how your water use ebbs and flows throughout the year. Using your water bills, meter readings, and other information you've gathered, you'll be able to establish your water use baseline. The easiest way to establish a baseline is to use a year's worth of these utility bills from a representative year of the facility's operation. So you should pick a year that doesn't include any major projects or renovations, leaks, or other sort of variations that you're aware of. The water use from the chosen year should be representative of your facility, and this can be used as a starting point to measure your savings over time. If you don't have access to a year's worth of utility bills, you can always contact your water utility to request copies of bills from previous years, and that'll help you get the most accurate information possible. Once you've established your water use baseline, begin to inventory your major water using fixtures, equipment, systems, processes, and any other areas where water is used in your facility. In order to do this inventory, you'll want to perform an in-depth walkthrough of your facility to kind of mark down where these water using equipment is located and where water meters are located. During your inventory, note any obvious areas of improvement, such as leaking fixtures, single-pass cooling, or outdated equipment that you know needs to be replaced. Be sure to interview the specific personnel in charge of managing water use systems or equipment. This will help you understand day-to-day operation patterns and to verify water use estimates that you've made. It can also be helpful to ask personnel for improvement suggestions, since they work so closely with these technologies on a day-to-day basis. For the inventory, you'll want to make sure you capture detailed equipment and fixture information to help estimate daily water use later in the process. For example, for toilets, you'll want to record the flush rate. For faucets, you'll want to record the flow rate. And for various models of ice machines or equipment, you may want to find the model number and the manufacturer, so you'll be able to look up spec sheets later. When possible, verify water use of certain equipment or fixtures. You can do this by using a bucket to manually check flow rate over a short period of time, such as 30 seconds or a minute. For some larger pieces of equipment, you might consider installing a temporary water meter to assess the flow over a set period of time. So to assist facility managers and building owners in conducting a water assessment, WaterSense has created a few tools and has identified a few other resources developed by some of our partners. Specific to hotels, WaterSense developed the Water Use and Savings Evaluation Tool, also called the WaterUSE tool, and their associated water assessment worksheets. The water assessment worksheets can be used to guide you through conducting a facility water assessment and will help capture information about water using fixtures and equipment needed to populate the WaterUSE tool and provide instructions and guidance about the fields in the tool. Hotels can then input their facility-specific data that was collected on the assessment worksheets into the WaterUSE tool. The tool will then provide recommended best management practices for water and use areas and calculate potential water, energy, and cost savings for various projects. The tool can be customized to change the number and cost of potential replacement fixtures, as well as other specific information needed to provide the most accurate estimate of water, energy, and cost savings possible. The tool will also estimate project payback to be used for decision-making purposes. The right side of the slide is an outline of the water use areas covered in the worksheets. Each section of the worksheets has a corresponding tab in the WaterUSE tool. WaterSense also recommends some other useful tools for commercial and institutional facilities. Energy Star's website has a great deal of information, including the guidelines for energy management and portfolio manager tool. They also have calculators to analyze potential savings by installing Energy Star certified appliances. Several of our partners have also developed additional tools and resources. One of these partners is the City of Boulder, Colorado, which helped develop a CII water assessment tool for users without a technical background to conduct a basic water assessment and identify water conservation opportunities in all facility types. The CII tool is an Excel-based tool, and it's based on information from the WaterSense at Work Best Management Practices Guidebook. The South Florida Water Management District has recently updated their water assessment and self-guided water audit guide, which details instructions and worksheets to help users through this process. And finally, the Environmental Defense Fund, AT&T, and the Global Environmental Management Institute has developed an Excel-based water map tool with 3 primary components: a water scorecard, a water efficiency calculator, and a cycles of concentration estimator for your cooling towers. This tool is geared towards water efficiency improvements you can make by implementing free cooling and optimizing cooling tower performance. So once you've completed your facility assessment and determined where water is being used, you can now develop your facility water balance to see if there's any unidentified water sources or water losses. If you use the WaterUSE tool or another free C&I water assessment tool, it may provide water use estimates for each of your water end uses based on the information you gathered and entered into these tools. If you don't use a tool to help you, you can gather the information necessary on your own to create a water balance. Some of this information might include sub-meter data, engineering estimates, equipment specifications, or other assumptions that were made to be able to estimate how much water is used by each end use. For example, I may use my irrigation sub-meter to estimate how much water is used for my outdoor landscape, and on the other hand, I may estimate how many times my employees flush the toilet and how often they run a shower or faucet, coupled with their flush volume and flow rate information to determine how much water is used in my restrooms. The sum of measured and estimated water uses from all individual end uses should equal your facility's water use baseline. Once you have your balance completed, if more than 10% of your water use cannot be accounted for, there could be an unidentified source of water use, such as a leak or another piece of equipment that may require further investigation. For more information on establishing a facility baseline, conducting an assessment, and creating a water balance, I encourage you to view the recording from our June A4Assess webinar. I've posted a link to this webinar on the slides. And that being said, we're going to take a break now for questions on steps 1 and 2 before I hand it over to Tara to go through establishing goals and developing water management plan.
All right, so it looks like we have one question so far. Are there any WaterSense specifications coming for electronic faucets? So the WaterSense program does not have a plan to actually create a specific specification for electronic faucets. I'm guessing that you're referring to faucets that have a sensor or some other metered amount of water that's released and each time that someone is trying to use it. So with those type of fixtures, we encourage you to calibrate them and to check them on a regular basis to make sure that the timers are putting the right amount of time for each different use, and then also to make sure that they're not being set off at different times when there's no one there. So we call those ghost flushes for the sensors on toilets, but the same thing can happen with faucets, and it is something that you just need to kind of manage to make sure that it's being operated properly or functioning properly.
And that's actually a great example of, the benefit of conducting a water assessment in your facility is to be sure to walk your site every now and then just to make sure all your fixtures and faucets are operating as they should be and aren't, as Tara mentioned, ghost flushing or using water when they shouldn't be or when no one's standing in front of them.
So we have another question. If we're going to be discussing some success stories or case studies across the U.S., we will be having our speaker from the New York City Department of Environmental Protection speaking about a few different case studies actually that she has. And then we also have a wide range of them on the WaterSense website under the commercial section. We have about probably 15 case studies so far from facilities in different areas across the country. So I encourage you to check those out. As far as landscape irrigation, what products brought about the most water savings?
So we currently have a WaterSense specification for weather-based irrigation controllers, which assess local weather to determine whether your irrigation system should irrigate or not. So that's currently the only irrigation product with the WaterSense specification, but we're currently developing or in the process of developing specifications for pressure regulating bodies and sprinkler heads and possibly soil moisture sensors. So there's definitely a lot happening in outdoor, and that's definitely a big water use area, particularly for C&I. So definitely stay tuned. But even products such as rain sensors or soil moisture sensor that currently aren't eligible for the WaterSense label, we usually encourage those. And if you see the landscape and outdoor section of the WaterSense at Work Best Management Practices guidebook, that gives a few examples of things you can do on your outdoor landscape, whether that's sort of replacing your irrigation system with more efficient models, or if that's replacing your plantings to make sure that they're drought tolerant or native and don't require additional irrigation.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for those good questions. We're going to continue on with the next step for the goal setting portion. So after you've discussed, after you've connected your facility or conducted your facility water assessment, your water management team should have an understanding of how the facility is currently using water. The next step in the process is to establish some water management goals. Hopefully, the water management team includes representatives from the building owners, facility management, senior management, and other key decision makers already. But if not, gather these stakeholders and different people to develop a list of goals and policy initiatives. As we mentioned in step 1 about making a commitment, engaging employees from all parts of the organization in this goal-setting process can help ensure that a range of perspectives are considered, and it really promotes a sense of ownership among the building occupants and staff. When establishing goals, there are a few best practices to consider. First, you really want to make sure that your goals are measurable and realistic. We'd all love to reduce water use by 50% by next week with the turn of a wrench, but that's very unrealistic. So be sure to consider the available resources, such as funding and staff, when you consider what's actually achievable at your facility. Similarly, ensure that your implementation dates are also reasonable. Completing projects and assessing the success of that project can take time. Also consider facility-specific conditions such as long-term drought risk or standard water use restrictions in your area when establishing these goals. For example, if drought is common in your area and your local water utility often enforces outdoor water use restrictions, a possible long-term goal would be to pursue would be eliminating outdoor water use by slowly replacing your landscape with drought-tolerant plants. This ensures your facility maintains sustainable operations consistent with your region while also complying with local water use restrictions. Once these goals have been established, the goals should be communicated to all employees to ensure everybody's working in unison to achieve them. They can be communicated to staff through periodic staff meetings, emails, posters, or by actually updating your standard operating procedures. You should also establish a mechanism in which employees can provide input, suggestions, or report any unforeseen problems that may prevent certain goals from being achieved. Often employees suggest some of the best improvements because they are your eyes and ears throughout the facility, paying close attention to the inner workings of the process and the procedures. Employees who are responsible for achieving the goals should be encouraged to provide ongoing progress reports and feedback regarding these goals. This slide provides several examples of water management goals that your hotel or facility may want to set within your water management plan, which we'll discuss on the next few slides. One goal, for example, could be to reduce water use by a certain percentage per year for a period of years to meet a total target percentage reduction. So, for example, reducing your water use by 2% annually through 2025 based on a 2015 baseline for a total of water use reduction of 20%. Sorry, that was a lot of numbers, but basically, as you can see, and it's written there, it's a common goal to do it incrementally over the period of a few different years so that you can reach a larger percentage over time. Another example would be to complete a specific water savings project within a certain set time frame. Your facility may also want to commit to focusing on one specific area of water use. As we discussed, by creating your water balance, you can really identify where water is being used most so you can focus your efforts on the specific area where you can achieve the greatest savings. Other examples include establishing an effective leak detection program, eliminating outdoor water use entirely, or participating in a national or local program that can recognize your water use reductions. These are just a few examples. As you get to know your facility and operations better through the water management process, you're sure to identify some other great goals. After establishing your goals, the next step is to create an action plan to achieve them. From here on out, I'll refer to an action plan as a water management plan since it better characterizes the purpose. A water management plan should serve as your go-to document that compiles all of the information you've collected so far, as well as information on water efficiency projects you plan to pursue. Therefore, the water management plan should include your facility water use policy and goals that we just established, as well as the timeline over which you plan to achieve them. It should also include information on your local water and wastewater utilities, such as your point of contact and rates at which you're charged. In addition, information collected during the water assessment stage should be included, such as meter and measurement information, your facility's baseline water use, and inventory of water-using fixtures, equipment, and systems, and the water use balance that you created following your facility assessment. Including all of this information in your plan will ensure that you have a good snapshot of what your facility looked like when you started your management planning process. When you reassess your facility down the road, you can compare your progress to the existing management plan and update it accordingly. Finally, you'll want to include information on which water efficiency projects you've identified and plan to pursue. We'll go into detail about this now. Creating the project portion of your water management plan involves identifying the projects you'd like to pursue and calculating the cost and potential savings associated with each project. You then have to identify some of the funding sources that may be available for these projects and calculate some of the project payback or return on investment figures. You can then prioritize the projects based on the order in which you'd like to complete them, and then document this project prioritization and establish a timeline for their implementation. As I mentioned, WaterSense has created and recommended some tools that can help you conduct a facility assessment and identify water efficiency projects. Once you identify the projects you want to pursue, the next step in the planning process is to calculate your estimated water, energy, and cost savings for each project. You don't have to use one of the assessment tools WaterSense has recommended in order to identify water-saving projects, but these tools can be helpful in identifying these potential water, energy, and cost savings. To calculate the potential water savings from each of your projects, you'll need to understand a few items such as flow and flush rates, usage factors, operating days, and the number of people that are involved. For example, if I'm replacing existing toilets that flush at 3.5 gallons per flush and replace them with toilets of 1.28 gallons per flush, you would multiply that savings number of 2.2 gallons per flush and multiply that by the number of flushes per person per day, and then the number of people using the toilet each day, and the number of days your facility is operating. So the WaterSense at Work and WaterUSE tool provide some standard assumptions that you can use to help you with these savings estimates. But it does help you. You just have to basically put all of the different pieces together to come up with a standard with a number that represents that section. The energy savings can also result from water efficiency projects. There are two major examples of where this is the case. First, for any fixture or equipment that uses hot water, any water saved will have energy savings as well, since this saved water will no longer need to be heated. The other type of energy savings is by installing new water-efficient products that are also inherently energy efficient. For example, Energy Star qualified clothes washers, dishwashers, and ice machines are all required to meet certain water efficiency factors, but they are also more energy efficient than industry standard models. Energy Star has a few great calculators on their website, and tools like the WaterUSE tool can take these savings into consideration when providing project payback. Finally, cost savings is determined by multiplying your project's water and energy savings by the rates at which you are billed for those utilities from your local utility company. So if my project is saving 100,000 gallons of water, I'll no longer be paying the water and wastewater costs associated with that use, and therefore I can count that as a cost savings. For more information on identifying water, energy, and cost savings from projects, review the WaterSense at Work Best Management Practices Guidebook, which includes example calculations that you can follow for each of the different types of fixtures and equipment throughout your facility. The next thing you'll want to do is identify what type of financing options you may have for these projects. If the project is a simple operational change or a cheap restroom retrofit, you may be likely to fund the project in-house and see a quick payback. However, if the project requires a major renovation or replaces a large piece of equipment, you may need to consider other financing options. For larger, more expensive equipment, such as commercial laundry equipment, kitchen equipment, or HVAC equipment, heating and cooling equipment, for example, consider leasing it from a specialized vendor. Energy Star provides information on a variety of lease types for energy-using equipment, and some of this applies also to water-using equipment as well. This ensures that you are not committed to a piece of equipment throughout its whole life cycle, and you can upgrade more easily when more efficient technologies come on the market. Another great option is to reduce your upfront project costs is to secure a rebate from your local energy or water utility. These programs can include free product distribution, partial rebates on the purchase of water and energy efficient products, or other financial incentives based on estimated or verified water savings by implementing a large-scale project. So, for example, some water utilities will actually provide a rebate for changing out a full irrigation system or doing a landscape replacement. You should contact your local utilities to see if they have any rebates available for commercial and institutional facilities in your area. Some states or local municipalities also offer financing options for water and energy efficient products, such as property assessed clean energy or PACE financing. In the instance of PACE, full project funding is provided, and it is repaid over time for a period up to 20 years through an assessment on your property tax. It is likely that your operational savings from this project will more than offset the additional payments. Finally, you can also consider working with a water management service company or an energy service company, or ESCO, to provide financing for the project. These types of service companies will develop, finance, and install the water and energy efficient projects that will reduce utility and maintenance costs. These companies will also assume the technical and performance risk associated with these projects. The utility cost savings for these projects will be used to pay back the service company, with any additional savings being split between you and your facility and the company. So it's a very good option for some of the larger scale projects. So when calculating the simple payback for each project, it's a pretty easy way to determine whether or not a project is cost effective and whether it should be high on the priority list or where it should fall on the priority. To calculate the payback, first determine the estimated project implementation cost. If a rebate or alternative funding is available, subtract this from the total project cost, as this will make the project more cost effective. Next, calculate the amount of water and energy you may save by implementing the project. Once you know your total utility savings, by multiplying the savings number times the rate that you have, you can calculate the total utility cost savings expected using these water, wastewater, and energy rates. A simple payback is the cost of this project divided by the utility cost savings achieved throughout the project. So the formula that we're talking about is listed here on the actual slide, and we have additional more specific ones for each equipment type and project type or equipment type in our WaterSense at Work best management practices. Several factors should be considered when you're calculating the payback to make it as accurate as possible. For example, be sure to use the actual water and sewer and energy rates charged by your utilities in your calculations instead of a national average or other estimate. And include actual occupancy rates instead of estimates to ensure calculations are as realistic to your facility or your hotel as possible. Also, consider other reduced costs in your savings calculations. For example, if you implement a project to save water in your swimming pool, you may save money on water treatment and chemicals. You may also use less detergent if you install a high-efficiency laundry equipment, or you may decrease your overall laundry volume by saving, which thereby saves water, energy, detergent, and money if you actually implement a linen reuse program at your hotel. So these additional savings should be factored into your simple payback equation to make sure that it's the most realistic, and it also helps make it more attractive. So these different other costs savings can actually, come in different forms. So you just need to take a look at the entire, the entire project and kind of look and see if there are other ways that you're also saving at the same time. So as we mentioned earlier, the WaterUSE tool is a great resource for hotels to easily calculate these water, energy, and cost savings, as well as the simple project payback. When you enter all of your facility-specific information, it'll create some project recommendations and savings calculations, which you can use to prioritize projects, and then you can use this to present your information to your management, and that can help justify some of the project implementation. On the screen, you can see a screenshot of the summary tab of the WaterUSE tool, which lists some of these different recommended savings and some of the actual numbers that could be saved by making changes. And here I've zoomed in so you can see more clearly how the potential water, energy, and cost savings, as well as payback, are displayed. For more information on how to use the WaterUSE tool and how it works and how it calculates these different things and recommends projects, we have a recorded webinar that we did last year on this topic. So there's a link to that on the screen. It's on the WaterSense webpage. And you can also find our other webinars as well that can help you through this process and to use the tools. So organizing projects based on their simple payback that you just calculated can be a great way to prioritize these projects. Before prioritizing projects that may require a capital investment, you should first fix any equipment that's malfunctioning or leaking, as these issues are the most urgent and provide immediate water and cost savings. After leaks and equipment malfunctions are fixed, you may want to tackle the most simple and least cost projects, such as implementing a linen and towel reuse program, or improving equipment standard operating procedures, like running clothes and dishwashers only on full loads. You may also want to consider altering some of your fixture and equipment operation and maintenance procedures to capitalize on no-cost water savings. WaterSense at Work provides some great operation and maintenance ideas for each water end use that you may have in your facility. So that's a great way to make small changes that can often result in big savings. Some of the more affordable retrofit and replacement projects should be completed early on to maximize savings. These projects include retrofitting faucets with new aerators, installing WaterSense labeled shower heads, and WaterSense pre-rinse spray valves in commercial kitchens. All of these products save both water and energy and can typically pay back this investment in under a year. These will also give you some immediate wins and help you to gain some momentum for your water management plan and program. After you've tackled the low-hanging fruit, prioritize your remaining projects. You can do this in a number of ways, using whichever method is most meaningful to your hotel or facility. Some examples include prioritizing projects from shortest to longest payback period, highest to lowest potential water savings, or most visible to least visible. In the case of hotels, you may want to consider first implementing projects that have the least impact on your guest experience to make changes without actually affecting any of the guest satisfaction. So some of those may be changing mechanical systems and laundry optimization, as well as other upgrades that are happening at the back of the house or behind the scenes, because this can be a great source of savings without actually affecting anyone that's actually using the building. So once you've prioritized these projects, you should document this in a detailed water management plan. This ensures that the projects are implemented and that the water management goals are reached. Remember that the projects are completed and goals are achieved or changed. Your water management plan should be revisited, and projects can always be reprioritized. It's meant to be a working document that can be updated as your facility priorities change. Maintaining a detailed water management plan also ensures that whenever funds or resources become available, you can quickly identify the next project to be completed without having to go through the assessment and project identification process all over again. Finally, consider including a section of your water management plan on emergency contingency. This emergency contingency plan can help prioritize operations at your hotel and facility and help you prepare for and respond to significant droughts or water restrictions. As many of you may be aware, municipalities in California are expected to meet mandatory water use reductions. By assessing your facility water use and prioritizing your facility operations, you'll be prepared to respond to any request or know which one of your functions should be shut down or cut back, like outdoor irrigation or pool use whenever this happens. As you can see on the screen, we've included an example of a prioritized project list that was included in a water management plan that was developed for a facility by our contractors, ERG, and this was the assessment that they summarized and completed. So the projects are prioritized here by the years to payback, but the list also includes a description of the project, the estimated project cost, and some of the potential water, energy, and utility cost savings associated with each. So this basically gives an overview of the things that can be done and the potential savings that you could see. So someone can take this and use it for many years to come, depending on how they want to attack their water management planning. For additional information on developing a water management plan, please see the linked resources that we have. Some of them are available through the Federal Energy Management Program and the General Services Administration, because the government has to do this on a regular basis for all of the government buildings, basically. And in addition, you can also see some example water management plans that were developed by the EPA for their own facilities on their Greening EPA webpage that's listed at the bottom. I'd like to open up the floor to some questions now about some of the goal setting and developing a water management plan section. We have quite a few of them. Okay. This may seem like a simple question, but how do you know the gallons per minute per flush? Someone is asking.
So for faucets and shower heads, a lot of times that information is labeled on the side. So on a faucet, if you look at the aerator, it'll tell you the gallons per minute flow rate as well as liters per minute flow rate. For urinals and for water closets or toilets, they're sometimes labeled. Alternatively, if you have an in-house plumber or facility manager, they might be aware of the valve inserts that they actually maintain for the facility. So every now and then, for urinals and for flush armor valve toilets, you need to replace the inserts because they'll sometimes leak or malfunction. And so by looking at what the replacement setting is, you'll be able to identify what the flush rate is. Also, if you know when the facility was constructed, that can indicate sort of a general idea. For example, after 1996, I believe, all commercial toilets need to be 1.6 gallon per flush, and now there's more efficient 1.28 gallon per flush models out there, as well as some dual flush models. But the requirements now for labeling are a little bit more robust. So with newer fixtures, you'll be able to identify what the flush rate is just by looking at the valves or just to see where it's labeled.
Excellent. Well, we also have a more down deeper in the weeds question, actually. Based on the most recent outbreak of Legionnaire's disease in the South Bronx and the passing of some new standards, does WaterSense recommend including water safety objectives in both potable and heating and cooling water into water management planning programs? Obviously, WaterSense, in addition to saving water, we also want water to be safe for everyone that's using it. Where EPA is all about saving human health and the environment. So we do encourage everyone. Obviously, this is an issue that's come up quite a bit in the news lately. Everyone needs to be very aware of any local health, public health issues, and any requirements that are included in any local codes and ordinances. And, as part of your water management planning, we also, suggest that that's included with procedures that you do to make sure that your facility is safe at the same time. So these are some things that you can kind of fold in together as you're doing assessments. Obviously facility managers have many different roles. So this is just one way to kind of go about going through a facility. But we always encourage everyone to make sure that they're managing their water and their equipment as safely as possible.
And actually, and the commenter kind of alluded to this, but ASHRAE and ANSI just released a standard number 188 on managing or assessing and managing your risk of Legionella in building water systems. So if you're interested in that, or if you're concerned because of sort of what's been in the news, I definitely recommend that you look through that, and it kind of explains how you go through the process of assessing your specific building's risk to Legionella in the water system.
Thanks. Excellent. So we have a few questions about, do we have any toolkits that are available to help make that water balance? And how do you make some estimates about water loss for evaporation or water that's used from the different types of equipment? So we do have a lot of information about water assessments and how to actually create that water balance in the first section of the WaterSense at Work, water management planning section, where we really go through in detail exactly what you need to, write down and what types of the different things that go into making a water balance. But in terms of estimating water loss for evaporation, some of the best ways to do that are to use a temporary flow meter, or to actually kind of do a test on your own about, using a bucket and a stopwatch that can often help you manage or estimate the flow rate of any particular equipment. But, in terms of evaporative water loss, we really encourage people to just make sure that they have some of those major water users that might have evaporation, like irrigation or a cooling tower, that you look at those to sub-meter those so you can manage that water more closely.
There's also, you might be able to find, and this is how we develop the information for the WaterSense at Work guidebook. You can find regionalized or localized evaporation rates. So if you're talking about water losses from, let's say, a swimming pool, you can look up and you're in Las Vegas, like you can look up what that rate of evaporation is, and by multiplying that by your pool's square footage, you might be able to determine how many gallons are lost per day, per week, per month, or whatever sort of number you're looking for. And actually, for example, swimming pools, evaporated losses can be significant, so we always encourage people to install pool covers. You can even buy some chemicals that can go on top of the pool to sort of reduce those evaporative losses as well. So those are just some ways. One thing I'll say definitely about establishing a water balance is it's not quite a science. You kind of have to look for data sources or information where they're available. So the guidebook kind of helps point you to a lot of those sources, and whether it's through actually in the text of it or through their cited resources, there's a lot of good information that'll at least help you get your bearings on certain water use areas.
Yes, and like you said, that there's also a lot of local information. So, in some areas, like I believe it was Los Angeles, they're even using rubber balls on the top of their reservoirs to reduce evaporation losses. So, there are a lot of different ways to do it, but it's, there are a lot of resources and ideas that are going on at the local level too. So it's always great to just kind of look around and see what's going on near you. So another question we have for a restaurant, how could you measure the usage of water in the restrooms? And for a restaurant, it's a little bit more difficult because you don't necessarily have a specific number of guests every day that you can always count on. So, in that case, we really have to end up doing an estimate usually that you can estimate the number of seats that you have, the number of, guests that you probably serve, and the flow rates, or even the amount of time that your restaurant is open and occupied can help too. So that's another area where it's kind of not an exact science, and that, there are some estimates that you can use, but depending on the type of your restaurant, but I would say you kind of have to wing it.
Yeah, one of the resources that we used a lot for the Best Management Practices Guidebook was by the Pacific Institute. It was called Waste Not, Want Not. And it provides actually usage estimates for different commercial and institutional sectors. So for restaurants, for hotels, for hospitals, schools, things like that. So I forget exactly what that factor is, but if you look through that report, you might be able to identify. It'll say, every restaurant patron uses the restroom 0.2 times or something like that. And so by finding that factor and then applying it to the number of restaurant patrons that you have on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, and then knowing your flush rate and flow rates, you'd be able to assess how much water is being used in your restrooms.
Excellent. All right. Well, I think that's all the questions that we have time for right now. I'm going to hand things over to Kara Foe from the New York City Department of Environmental Protection. Kara is a project manager with the New York City Department of Environmental Protection. Since joining the Demand Management and Resiliency Group in 2014, she has assisted with various municipal, residential, and non-residential water efficiency program initiatives. Most recently, she has focused on helping hotels and restaurants meet the Mayor's Water Challenge, which she will discuss today. Welcome, Kara.
Thank you. So if you guys can click through. A couple years back, New York City realized there was a need to control water demand, and this really kind of goes to a very high level of basically how we create surplus in the supply so that we have the ability to go in and make repairs when we need them without disrupting the supply to the city. So basically what the demand management plan does is it seeks to reduce the city's overall demand by 5% or 50 million gallons per day by the year 2025. And the way the plan suggests we do this is by 6 different programs. And today I'm going to talk to you about the 3rd program, which is the non-residential water efficiency plan. It's actually the 3rd icon down on the right side there. And what that is it's a voluntary conservation program to non-residential sector people. And basically, the programs I'm going to talk to you about today in that heading are basically non-monetized. So we do have some non-residential programs that are monetized, but the New York City Water Challenge is not monetized. So if I can get the next slide, please. So the New York City Water Challenge is a program that seeks to help non-residential water users achieve and sustain long-term water savings. And the way we do this is every year we pick a different private sector group and we go in and we will work intensively with them for that 1-year period. I'll describe a little bit more about the format of the program, but I do want to also just segue in that this program started in 2013 with a New York City challenge to hotels. This year we're doing a New York City water challenge to restaurants. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that program. But I do want to highlight that we did a New York City Water Challenge to hotels with 12 participating hotels from 2013 to 2014, and it was a good program. We got an overall reduction of 0.3 million gallons per day by the end of the challenge, and 4 out of the 10 hotels actually managed to surpass the 5% reduction goal and actually achieve greater than 10%. So if I can get the next slide, please. Now, the reason why I'm going to talk more in depth about the restaurant challenge is that this is our second year doing the challenge, and we learned a lot from doing the hotel challenge the first year. So with the restaurant challenge, we really came in with a lot of lessons learned, and we had a much better laid out structure for this program. So talking a little bit about the structure, there are really 4 main deliverables for each of the challenge participants. And the first is the water conservation plan. Basically, the whole program revolves around the water conservation plan. The workshops each kind of take on a different part of developing your conservation plan. The monthly reports that each person gets kind of helps them stay on track with their conservation plan. And then, of course, we also recognize people's achievements in press releases, that we also recognize things that they managed to do successfully from their water conservation plans. So, those 4 main deliverables are very important to the program, and they all support the idea of water conservation planning, how it's important, how it's cyclic, and how it really kind of drives the whole process and makes it so that the savings are long-term. I just want to also direct your attention to the little flyer on the right side. This is a flyer we put together at the beginning of the program that kind of outlines each of the workshops we had. But what's really important about this poster is the partnerships. As I mentioned before, this is a non-monetized program. New York City is not allowed to fund private companies. So basically, what we did was we said, well, we could bring the expertise and we can organize this program, but we really need to incentivize through other groups. And we did that through partnering with Con Edison, which is an energy utility here. We also partnered with NYSERDA, which is a New York State department that often has rebates and programs that help building owners make their buildings more efficient. Some non-monetary partners we also brought in was obviously the U.S. EPA WaterSense program and the New York State Restaurant Association. I think one thing we've really learned from doing this program for 2 years is you really have to have a partner in the industry, both to help publicize, help recruit, and really kind of help you get that word out. Because one of the great things that comes out of this program is every year we do a manager's guide for that sector. And then, our partner really helps get the word out on that. And then, of course, our other partners are the Mayor's Office, and we also have a partnership with Alliance for Water Efficiency, which comes in and provides some of the expertise on our workshops. So get next slide, please. So I just threw in a couple slides here to give you an idea of what the deliverables look like. So this is the monthly report deliverable. Each participant in the challenge gets one of these every month. What it does is it shows them 2 things. It shows them their monthly water consumption during the challenge versus that same month the year prior. And it also shows them in the chart on the right their water use intensity, and it plots it against the other challengers in the program so they can get a good idea of where they lie. For hotels, which is what this example is, the water use intensity was very useful. For restaurants, it was a little bit more difficult to compare them to each other in this sense, but it is very helpful. So next slide, please. I also want to highlight our water conservation plan. Some of the main parts that are in our water conservation plan is we have a sheet where they commit to change. We also have a section where they profile the restaurant, like what kind of utility hookups they have, what kind of hours they have, whether their equipment's leased or not, which actually is pretty important, we found out in restaurants. We also have them track their water usage, which is very similar to the monthly report they get, but we basically provide a table for them to input. And then we also sit down with them and do a water conservation strategy. And that's something we actually found with restaurants going there in person, talking to them, and then going back, writing it, and sending it to them was the easiest way to do it for restaurants, just because of the difficulty in getting people's attention and time commitment. And then lastly, in the conservation plan, there is an equipment inventory. Can I get the next slide? Thank you. So before I get into case studies, I think it's really important that I share with you some of the outreach and engagement lessons we've learned over this 2-year challenge. Recruiting and planning is very difficult, especially in a program like this where participation is voluntary. There's not a lot of money on the table, at least not from DEP directly. And you have to realize that with participants, it just may not be a priority. So you really kind of have to go out of your way to think like they do and try to accommodate them as much as you can. As far as recruiting goes, cold calls don't really work. I think you really have to go there and meet with people face to face to get them engaged. You know, restaurants especially have a lot of barriers to getting to managers, so really getting there in person and announcing that you're a utility and you're there to talk about their water usage is probably the easiest way to get their attention. But you know, the good news is once you get their attention, they're generally ready to participate. Another thing we found very useful was recruiting through partners. Again, New York State Restaurant Association, they have a very large group of restaurants that they're used to communicating with for all kinds of reasons. So they were a great resource to recruit restaurants. And then I think with restaurants and with hotels, you really have to be sensitive to the seasonality of their business. Obviously, holidays are a bad time. Good times happen to be like months like March and February, though not around Valentine's Day, we find. So you gotta, you know, look for that, and then also realize that there are certain times of the day that people are more busy than others, and you know, do your best to kind of work with that. As far as workshops go, the way the program has been ran so far, we have physical workshops where we ask people to come, but we've been progressively migrating towards webinars just because it's very difficult for people in the hospitality industry to leave their establishment. So we find that you get better attendance with webinars or recorded webinars that they can go then and watch whenever they want. And this is additionally a great benefit because we can post it to our website and reach more people besides the small number that we actually have participating in the challenge. And then I think I already mentioned about conservation planning. It's been our experience that one-on-one meetings at the location are, you know, far more effective than just giving somebody a plan and telling them, please just do it. It gets you there. Sometimes it gets you to actually walk through and see things that are going on, and it really kind of helps them brainstorm a little bit, especially because they might not be familiar with some of the benefits that you could highlight for them as far as easy things they could get. And being there in person, you know, once you've done a couple of them, you can help them through the process and make it a lot more streamlined. So next slide, please. So currently the New York City Water Challenge program has 30 participants. The goal is to reduce usage by 0.4 MGD by the end of 2015. We have 15 of the 30 restaurants are metered. Technically, we try to have all of our buildings metered when we do a water challenge, but with restaurants, there's a technicality in that a lot of them are in tenant space, and in New York City that doesn't always mean they're metered. So, you know, we decided that in order to spread the message, we would take half of our participants as non-metered. But, you know, those non-metered buildings are actually participating just as much as the metered buildings are, which is great. And, you know, we found that 11 of our 15 metered buildings have met the 5% reduction goal, and you know, we only have 4 months left in the challenge, so it looks like we're going to get some really great conservation out of this 1 year. Next slide, please. So I have 2 hotel case studies and I have 2 restaurant case studies, and I'm going to start with the Carlton Hotel. The Carlton Hotel is a 180,000 square foot hotel. It's an older hotel built in 1904, or rather opened in 1904, and has a lot of services, kitchen, restaurants, fitness center, and 317 guest rooms. A lot of the hotels we approached for the hotel challenge actually had a lot of conservation effort going on in the buildings, either through their own initiatives or corporate initiatives. So it's interesting that a lot of them already had done fixture replacements and done some of the other low-hanging fruit items, but despite that, a lot of them were able to attain even more than the 5% savings. So can I have the next slide, please? So in the Carlton's case, they went and did an inventory of the building, and they also did a courtesy card campaign, very similar to what was been discussed earlier in this webinar. You know, linen reuse, training housekeeping staff, and just overall being proactive about it. And at the end of the challenge, they managed to save 13%. Which is 160 gallons per month, or about $2,100 per month is what they saved. So the Sheraton Tribeca, it's a little bit different case. It's a more modern high-rise hotel. It's got 369 guest rooms, and it also has all the full-service kitchen, restaurant, maintenance, cleaning, you know. They already had an existing commitment to water conservation. But what they really did is, because they don't lease their kitchen like the Carlton does, they were actually able to go in and make a lot of improvements in there through replacing dishwashers, through replacing spray valves. I should mention they use the EPA WaterSense spray valves. And with those changes, they are able to reduce by 20%, which is 190,000 gallons per month, which saved them about $2,500 a month. So, you know, not huge changes, but we encourage our participants to realize, because the conservation plan is cyclic, you tackle one or two things during that year, and you work on those things. And then say if there's large dollar items that you need to do in the future, you have them in your plan, and you can work towards planning for them in the future. But we find that a lot of small, low-hanging fruit type replacements that are relatively cheap and a lot of behavior changes can actually get you these savings pretty easily. So we're going to get into like the two restaurant case studies right now. The first is for Mesleria, which is a steak restaurant in the Meatpacking District. It's 3,500 square feet, and they use approximately 2.8 million gallons in 2014. They have been a great success story for the program so far. They've already saved 11% to date. And they've done this by, again, doing smaller things, placing flow restrictors on the bar and hand sinks. They retrofitted the prep sinks to have foot pedals, and then they also put aerators on those. They also, this is something that we didn't realize when we started this challenge, they also got their equipment leasing company to come in and basically service all their equipment, and then at the same time turn down the flow rate on their once-through water cooling equipment. So that just right there saves them a lot. Can we get the next one, please? And then my last one is Mark Forgione. This one is an American food restaurant. It's about 4,500 square feet. They use about 1.8 million gallons in 2014. They have seen 25% water savings to date, which is great. And they've done this by, again, small things. Flow restriction aerators on the bar and hand sinks. They also, through one of our partners, Con Edison, replaced all the lighting. They reduced flow on their once-through water cooling, similar to what Mesleria did. They replaced outdated ice machines, which definitely saves you a lot of water right there. And then they also updated their pre-rinse spray valves. So they did a really great job in getting in there and getting all kind of the small stuff, and then also leveraging any kind of savings they could get through our Con Edison and NYSERDA partners to kind of help them out. So that is the end of my presentation.
That's really helpful to know more about all of the different challenges that you had and all of the, areas that you had to, you didn't realize things like the fact that they had leased a whole bunch of equipment and had vendors that could come in and, change the flow rates on some of their systems. So that's really helpful. And that's, kind of why we can't give exact advice or, give exact specific things that you can do, because every single facility is different and every type of facility is different. So that's really helpful, and it sounds like you guys have done some really great work and have gotten some really great savings. So thank you for sharing.
I just want to say, oops, sorry. Now that the presentation is back up, I just want to plug the two web addresses. We have a lot of our challenge information up on our webpage, including the hotel manager's guide that we put together last year. So if you're interested in what we've been doing, definitely check it out.
Excellent, thank you. And yeah, definitely we'll be including some of those links on our website too, so that people can see some of the information. And it's always great to have some ideas about things that you can start with. And but I think it does really speak to the importance of working with partners and to just work with the people that are working there, so that you can working together you can get some of the big changes and some of the good results. So do we have any questions for Kara before we move on? The first question is, how do you choose the restaurants and hotels to recruit when you're doing your recruiting? Do you have specific criteria for them, or do you just kind of put the word out and through channels and see who responds?
Well, I mentioned before, we're really looking for businesses that are metered, and they have at least 1 year of water meter data that's available for us to kind of track their challenge year data against, because it's really hard. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the whole point of the water conservation plan is that we're able to actually quantify what they save, and that kind of goes back to the demand management plan at large. Is yes, it's a plan where we save water, but we need to be able to quantify that. So having a water meter is probably one of the larger requirements. What we generally do is we go into our billing database and we identify a whole slew of restaurants, and then it's really just calling and hitting the pavement. And I'm going to be honest, we probably contacted over 200 restaurants to get 30. So it wasn't easy, and it took us a long time. We had an intern who worked on it in the summer, and then actually we were able to get a dedicated part-time graduate student to really help with getting the program going and doing the conservation plans. Because as I mentioned, it's intensive to make the appointments and then actually go out there and do the conservation plan with them.
And to actually tag along to what Kara was saying, just about the importance of metering and be able to track progress, that sort of goes back to what we were talking about in the webinar about setting goals and being able to achieve them and being able to track and recognize those goals. So definitely meters and sub-meters and things like that will help you as a facility or as a program that works with C&I facilities to help push some of these efforts and then be able to recognize where water is being saved.
So the next question is, how do you get participants to follow through and actually do the retrofits and change their behaviors of their staff?
Well, I think with hotels and with the restaurants, there's a drive to be more efficient. And I think with hotels, it's more about the green reputation. And then with restaurants, it's more about the bottom line. So, I mean, all these businesses are on metered rates. So if they save money, if they save water, they save money. So with a restaurant where the margin is usually pretty small, if I tell them you can save, $1,000 a month by, putting an aerator on or, on all your faucets and then fixing a leak. And I mean, they're going to do it. They don't have any qualms about that, especially because a lot of the stuff doesn't really impact them that much. I mean, turning down the flow on your once-through cooler is not something that they're probably going to, walk in and feel the difference, But the long and the short of it is we really can't force them to do anything. You just educate them the best you can, give them the tools they need, and you set them free. And, if the money is not enough of incentive, we do kind of do press releases where we try to publish their names and give them credit. And, they respond to that. People like to hear that. And, it didn't hurt that last year, the hotel challenge, we gave them a nice little glass trophy to put in their lobby, too.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
Small
sometimes,
things.
yeah, the small things. Sometimes, yeah, I think that's, like you said, the motivation for every type of facility is going to be different. And I would say that's even, true across the board. Even different parts of the facility have different, motivations. And that's why, kind of working with the people that are working in those areas, kind of helps to at least identify what might motivate them and, how they can actually work together to make those savings happen. So, yeah, but it is very hard to, really get people to make changes. Sometimes that's the hardest part of all. So, we really try to tell people, at least from WaterSense's perspective, is, looking at some of those things that don't affect people's the operation of the facility, for example, with like those single pass cooling or, making changes in the back of the house to some of the bigger systems like the heating and cooling system and, looking at the outdoor water use, and changing the landscaping doesn't affect the employees or the guests that are there. So, those are some ways to kind of make some changes without, having to upend all of the standard operating procedures. So, it's really kind of a mixture. I think you're getting at that point too, is that you kind of mix all of the different things together and work on the plan in different areas so that you can bring it all together to make savings. So, somebody asked, did you have to follow up with calls and multiple site visits? Do you have a sense of how much time you put in per site? I mean, you said you had a graduate student that was able to come in. That sounds really great and helpful. But it sounds like you had to put in quite a bit of work too. I'm not sure how much you had to put in with the actual participants, after you recruited.
Well, I'm going to be honest. Program planning-wise, we recycle pretty much the same program every year. Getting the participants is difficult. The graduate intern we had, he had about 20 hours a week to work on the project. And, he didn't just work only with the hotels. He worked on, workshops and coordinating speakers and basically all the peripheral stuff that goes with the program. I think the time investment was larger this year because we did 30 restaurants. Next year we're going to be doing hospitals, and we're only doing 3. So we really try to gauge how many we can take on. But what's really important out of this is that we learn things about that sector. Some of the restaurants take more work than others, but it's worth it because there's useful information there. And if we can take that information at the end of the challenge and put it in something like our manager's guide and then give it to New York State Restaurant Association and say, spread the word, that's worth the time for us. Again, a lot of the stuff is not complicated. They can do it themselves. But getting in there and getting them to just stop 1 minute, stop taking orders, stop, dealing with any issues that are going on around them, and just think about it. That's the challenge, but once you get them to do it, the idea is that they realize it's not a big deal, and then they can sit down and do their own, check. Maybe when they do their bills, they say, well, my water looks up this month. Maybe I'll have somebody go look for leaks, or, maybe there's a reason for this. So it's just getting them in this mindset. And I think restaurants are interesting in that they think so much nowadays about where their food comes from. that it's only natural for them to really start thinking about their operations more. With hotels, you're a little bit luckier because they have been thinking about operations already. And I found that with a lot of the New York City hotels, they've done towels, they've done the fixture replacements. Now they kind of got to get a little bit more into the technical stuff like heating and cooling savings. So there is a heavy time investment, but you do get a lot out of it, I guess is my answer. Some restaurants, you call them and you go right in. Other ones, you just had to doggedly pursue them. But there comes a point where you got to let them go too. So where that happens kind of, depends on your tolerance and the time you have available.
Excellent. Well, that's, a great answer, because I think that that's definitely the case with a lot of different types of facilities that, like you said, it just depends on where they are in the process and how you can, appeal to the process that they're already doing. So yeah, that's really helpful, and especially putting things in management plans or in guidebooks, I think really helps a lot, because it can allow us to share some of the lessons that we've learned with others and really kind of get them to be able to do things as well. So we can learn from each other, which is the point of doing some of these webinars. So thank you so much for sharing, Kara. That was really, really very helpful. So does anybody else have any more questions for Kara? All right, then just real quick, we are going to close things out by reviewing some of the topics that we talked about in the webinar and some of the information that you can find on our website as well. So as we discussed, the first steps in water management planning are to make a commitment and conduct the facility water assessment, which can help you identify where you're using the most water and help identify potential projects. There are multiple tools available to help you conduct this facility assessment and identify these areas where you can reduce water use. While WaterSense's WaterUSE tool and the assessment worksheets are currently tailored to hotels, some of our materials seem like they're tailored to them. All of these concepts can be used with different facility types. So, I encourage you to just take a look, and that a lot of it may be applicable across the board. So we're trying to make it as universal as we can. So, once you've done that and you've completed your assessment, you have a better understanding of your facility's water use, you can kind of work with the team and work with the people to have them make really aggressive goals or achievable goals to help manage the water use. And then you can use some of our tools to establish just project lists and prioritize them based on those goals. So finally, we encourage everybody to document everything so that you can use that plan later and be ready for all of the information, if somebody asks or if you have to respond quickly. So along those lines, we are having 2 more webinars focused on these topics this year. So the next 2 are scheduled for October and December. So we encourage you to participate in some of those. We'll probably also be having some joint webinars with Energy Star. So we'll try to make sure that we get the information out to the different about the different things to all of you. And the registration links for these webinars are available on our website, and the website's listed here, along with the recorded webinars from 2014 and 2015 are all on the website as well. So each one of these are focused on water use areas within a facility and can help you take specific actions to start saving water. And then we will post a recorded version of this webinar along with so you can actually see the slides, unlike now because they keep shutting down. But that will be available online, and we'll be sure to send out the information as soon as we have it. And then also, if anybody has any case studies that they would like to share, we'd be very excited to hear about them, and that you too could present on one of these webinars. So just let us know, and we can feature you on one of the other ones. So finally, just a heads up on our website that this fall we'll be launching our new WaterSense at Work Solution Center on the website. We're basically revamping some of the commercial section to make it easier to find the tools and resources that we have available to all of the different facility types in commercial buildings. And so we'll be including some shorter presentations for some people to be able to watch those and actually use those an easier way to get some of the basic information. And then we'll also be including a lot of case studies like the one that was presented today, and some tools and resources like checklists and other other links to other commercial resources. And everybody that's on the call and everybody participating in the Hotel Challenge and all the other commercial work that we've been doing will get, get an email, and you'll see it come up on the website too as well. So if you guys have any questions, we would like to just do a quick poll if we have one, to actually just kind of get a sense of anybody that may be willing to share a case study in the future. If you could just tell us yes, maybe, sometimes, we would greatly appreciate it. And we will also be sharing all the information from this webinar online as well, which will include the links to the information from the New York City programs as well. So that's basically it, unless there are any other questions. And we are very glad that you were able to join us today. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but we're really glad that you were able to join us to learn more about water management planning and how it can be used to really help reduce water use. So you can contact us on our website or through our helpline if you have any questions or if you have any information that you'd like to share. I think that that's all really helpful, and we can all learn from each other. So thank you all very much for participating today, and have a